Doge's fraud tracker at Social Security turns into a massive cell phone, is this article from the Daily Beast. And the details from it are fucking spectacular. So these guys are supposed to be the super smart, computery, mathy people, okay? And what they said was they told people, and I saw the part of the hearing or the interview where they were talking about where this spread around, that 40% of the calls that they were getting in, you know, for Social Security and Medicaid, or yes, for Social Security were fraudulent. 40%. 40% of the calls were fraudulent. This is what they were saying. That's where they got this idea that they were going to get, you know, somewhere around $1 trillion in savings from Social Security because half of the calls that happen just about are fraudulent. And we get rid of that fraud. Holy shit, we're going to save $1 trillion, right? That was the sales pitch. And where did that come from? Well, it came from one of the DOGE assholes, and I think it's in here. Yeah, so let me just switch to a reader so we can just do this easier. Okay. It turns out that 40% of the calls to Social Security Administration are not fraudulent. DOGE's probe revealed the real figure is 0.0018%. That's how much fraud the calls that go into that. Now, that 40% number is meaningful in relation to this number. And I'll explain in a minute. But this is how fucking dumb these people are. All right, check this out. So, procedures implemented by the Department of Government Efficiency suggested that just two out of the 110,000 calls to the Social Security Administration this spring had a high probability of being fraudulent. By the way, this doesn't mean that they were fraudulent. It means they had a high probability. You could go check, and it could turn out they weren't. They just sound fraudulent, right? The high probability is not conviction, right? So, that is a far cry from the 40% figure that was parroted by MAGA in recent months, including by DOGE's recently departed leader, Elon Musk, and Vice President J.D. Vance. The real figure is about 0.0018%. Okay. The anti-fraud procedures were put in place by DOGE last month, by the way, it just piggybacked on ones that were already there, and have seemingly done more harm than good. According to an internal memo viewed by NextGov and FCW, the new procedures reassured DOGE staff members that fraudsters were not phoning the SSA every second, but reportedly slowed processing times at the administration by 25% and may soon be removed from protocol. So they slowed down real people needing help with their Social Security. 25% of them, the response time to their concerns or their problem was slowed down, minimum. I would argue that it's probably bigger. I don't trust the numbers anyways, but 25 at minimum. And so they're going to remove it. And they found that only 2 out of 110,000 calls had a high probability of being fraudulent and still not proving that they are. Okay, here we go. So where did this come from? DOGE's anti-fraud protocol required a 3-day hold to be placed on phone calls in order to check for fraud. So everybody had to wait an extra 3 days. This procedure delays payments and benefits to customers despite an extremely low risk of fraud. And again, you're harming people who earned these, earned this money. They are entitled to this money, and you are putting them in financial danger. You're damaging them because it's not their fault you're behind and haven't sent their check or done this stuff, right? And so by slowing this down, it's a dick move. But here's the thing. Where did it come from? Okay, so, and these are the math kids. Remember this. The 40% figure circulating in MAGA circles stems from a Fox News segment on March 27th where DOGE engineer Aram Mogadassi wrongly claimed that 40% of the calls made to Social Security Administration to change direct deposit information were from fraudsters. So remember that. 40% of the calls where people were trying to change their direct deposit information, they changed their bank account and therefore they moved their banking, their direct deposit has to go from their old bank account to their new bank account. That's all they're trying to do. Or they retire, they're no longer at their job or something, and so instead of it going through some account that they have, it goes directly to them. Whatever their situation is, if you call up to change where it's going or you filed stuff, and this, by the way, isn't just the people who filed to change this, to move their account, their direct deposit from one to, they've done all the paperwork, but there's a problem with it, so they call in because they have a problem. And then in this case, they got a 3-day delay for no fucking reason, just to sit on it, to see if the person calls back. Because it's not even 3 days where they're looking into it. It's just a 3-day pause on response. Fucking lame. Okay, so in reality, NextGov SCW reports that 40% of direct deposit fraud at the agency is associated with phone calls. So of all the people that are changing their direct deposit stuff, it's not 40% of those people. It's of the fraud that occurs, which there are 2 calls out of that 110,000. Of those 2 calls, almost one of them was from a phone call. Like, they were trying to defraud via the phone. The other person, I don't know what the fuck, but half of those people were trying to, of 2 fucking people, of the people that called in, 40% of direct deposit fraud at the agency is associated with phone calls. So of that 110,000, of the 2 that they marked for highly possible that it was fraud, almost one of those people committed their fraud over the phone. 40% of the 2. Yeah. So I don't know why it's not 50-50. Did the guy just not commit? It's just fucking stupid. This is crucial to like how dumb DOGE is. It's not 40% of the 110,000 calls are fraudulent. It's the 2 fraudulent calls that they think they found. 40% of them, the fraud happened over the phone. The other one, I guess, may have, I don't know, called in to check on their filing and see if it had gone through. So they didn't defraud on the phone. They weren't directly lying in the call. They did it through paperwork. Of the fraud that happens, half of it, under half of it happens via people calling in. And of the calls coming in, the fraud that occurs is 0.0018%. Yeah, this is so bad. This is so fucking dumb. Likely based on exaggerated fraud figures, by the way, the SSA announced in March that it would phase out allowing people to make account changes to claims over the phone. That policy was scrapped a short time later following a public backlash. That's because this motherfucker told everybody, this asshole and his buddies that were on that Fox News interview, that almost half of the people who call in checking on their shit, why is my direct deposit not going in the right account? That 40% of those people are fraudulent. That's the story, which totally explains how this motherfucker said that. Remember that thing he was saying about how people who squeal the loudest are the most fraudulent? That the people who, if you turn off the tap, it's the fraudsters that call in first. Well, first of all, that's bullshit. If you know you're committing fraud and it gets cut off, you're not the first person to yell about it. As a matter of fact, you're hoping it will get turned back on, or you manage your scheme some other way. But the idea that you'll call up when you know you're fucking committing a crime, it's like breaking into a bank and going, it says on your website that this is a Coleman Hughes fucking safe door in here, and I come in here and it's a Langley. What the fuck? Like that, it's ridiculous. Nutlick was repeating what he had said. Elon Musk said repeatedly that the people who squeal the most are the people who are engaged in fraud. And where did he get that from? It seems like there was a source from within DOGE is where he got that from. This dipshit who said 40% of the calls that come in are fraudulent instead of 40% of the fraudulent calls, of which there are 2 possibly, again, suspected, not proven, but 2 possibly. Of those, 40% of the 100%, which is 2 people, and again, this gets into 2.5 kids category. I got to stop at 5 o'clock because I got to go get kitties. But I wanted to end on this because this is so fucking crucial. So clip this piece and show it out there. It's a really important detail because it not only points out that they're lying about the fraud that's in Social Security and they are denigrating people who are out, who are on Social Security and desperately need this to survive. But on top of that, it shows that they're just fucking dumb. These are Trump's idea of geniuses. This is, these are people who are supposed to be, whiz kids, right? brainiacs, great geniuses with good genes, right? Nope. Morons. Can't even do statistics. It was always a lie. Of 110,000 calls, 40% of them were not fraudulent. There were 2 possibly fraudulent calls, and 40% of those involved using a telephone. This is why competence matters, and why no one should fear complexity. Son of a bitch. Hit that like, everybody. Share the show, and thank you guys for subscribing today. Get me over that number. If it tickles your fancy, let's get 20 more subscribers tonight. If you're watching this later and you're seeing this and you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. All right, and credits. Should we roll those? There they go.